Ramon Foster, what did you like about the ones on the offensive line yesterday in New Orleans?
Where do we start with this, man? Because it was a long list of things, man, that they did well yesterday. One, it wasn't much negativity. They didn't take away from the offense, is what I saw for the most part yesterday. For instance, there was a point where Will Levis sat in the pocket, just stood up like a statue. Mason Rudolph did the exact same thing, and I heard Mike Keefe and Coach Mack talking about the passes that was completed because of it, and I'm yelling on the talkback mic to Philip Noel, but did you see the pocket? That's all I kept saying. Like, there was literally an umbrella around the quarterbacks, and to me, having the ability to operate in a safe pocket to where even I thought the guys were getting close to Will Levis, and Will Levis had enough confidence and trust in his guys up front that he just stayed in the pocket, stepped up and delivered a pass. Whether it was incomplete or not, to me, showed a lot about where the growth of this offensive line has gone, man. But even starting off the game, one, the run blocking up front. Their combination blocks that I know a lot of people don't pay attention to, those dudes are moving bodies up front. Looking at MPF and also Dylan Radins on the right side, they are moving people 2 by 2 at a time, and I think that's very progressive for those dudes. We got a lot of questions about them. I thought starting with MPF, I thought his stance off the side, his sets at right tackle was a whole lot better. He's getting back. He's strong enough. He's big enough. He's striking his hands the way you need him to. And also, whether he's pushing the DN by or expanding the pocket by holding them, he did that well. Now, the left side, JC and Peter, run left was a thing right here in Nashville.
It was.
The way they
Roger
Saffold and Taylor Lewan.
Yes, those two dudes, man. The way I see Peter Skoronski and J.C. Latham combo block and move guys around, it's rare that you actually get pancakes in the NFL. I know we speak about that in high school and college all the time. How many pancakes you got? Those dudes are pancaking guys. And I was glad to see that. And there's also this, too. When you got a good enough quality of guys, you get this Dumbo Jumbo pack that they ran out there yesterday, too, with Bronsko at fullback. And also,
that's right, for that touchdown.
Did you see it, though?
Yeah.
It was violence.
Yeah.
Well, not to cut you off, Ramon, but I think it's called something else.
That was Jumbo, Jumbo, Jumbo.
There we go.
Jumbo Dumbo.
It was
crazy. Straight
Triple
bullet
jumbo.
to Dan Brunskill starting off his Monday morning.
Here
comes Dumbo in to play fullback.
But
Number 62, Daniel Brunskill will jump in.
Big Dumbo here coming in.
Dumbo Jumbo.
Drop him
725.
But here's the thing, what I saw. They're well coached, and we see that now. I think that's super important. The trust of those guys up front as far as protection is getting better and better. Everybody on this offensive line pulls. I've seen JC pull left.
That is 100% accurate.
So they got athletes. And I've said everything but Cushenberry. I think the one play, and again, here's the one negative that they had, it wasn't even on the offensive line. From my understanding, it was a miscommunication between Julius Chestnut and Mason Rudolph, where Mason went left and I think Julius went right. But before that play was snapped, you see Lloyd Cushenberry pointing left to the mic, like Mike's left. And I don't know if it was a check with me and they were supposed to flip the play and go left and Julius didn't get it. But
Mason went left and then Julius did not.
He went right, but you see up front the field general and Lloyd Cushenberry pointing to the mic to the left, and I was just like, that's awesome right there. You got guys up front that understand the operation of this group, but that's what I had on them, man. Like, they were able to pull. They had great pocket presence for the quarterback. They were physical. And I even, before I had my sideline interview with Peter Skoronski, I asked him off air. I was like, Peter, man, how is it this year coming into camp, knowing that you're a guard opposed to, transitioning from tackle? He was like, I'll be honest with you, last year was a little bit of a struggle. He was like, I had to figure out how to play guard. And this year, he was like, man, it's been a whole lot better. And it's like, and also going against Jeff every day helped too.
Well, yeah.
So it's been growth under pressure for these guys up front, but I think they've taken it on very, very well. It won't be perfect, but here's the other thing too. This coaching staff is tricking us with the idea that this is just going to be throwing the ball across the yard. No. They are, if I'm not mistaken, had over 100 runs this preseason, which is nuts. Yep. I think they have the most amount of runs of any team in the preseason per team as far as the attempts to put the ball on the ground. So
ran for 171 yesterday.
171, and just the amount of attempts that they've had. I think I was told by somebody they had over 100 attempts of running the ball this preseason, which again, don't think this will be a soft style of football that's going to be played here in Nashville. The better this group gets up front, the more you're going to be able to bully folks on the ground, and that's going to make Will Levis's game and whoever else they bring in here, wide receiver or tight end, that much better too. They did a good job yesterday as far as the crowd noise, no penalties, and having the ability to, I'm not sure if it wasn't any penalties, but they having the ability to grow. And that's what you're asking of this group, putting guys in positions that they want to play and letting them excel.
When you talk to any of these guys on the offensive line, specifically the starters, during preseason camp, so many of them throughout really the offseason, starting in OTAs, have just clarified just the growth that they've had under Bill Callahan and how he isn't coaching them as a whole necessarily. Like, he's coaching them to their individual, like what they thrive at, right? And then the goal is obviously to have them play together. And you were kind of seeing glimpses of it yesterday. They are still young, and there's going to be ebbs and flows throughout the season, no doubt about that. But he's getting the most out of these guys that we're seeing, at least on the starting offensive line right now. And I'm talking about Dylan Radins, and I'm talking about Nicholas Petit-Frere, where we don't know exactly what they're going to be this season. We hope, and it looks like they're going to be a lot better than we've seen in the past. And I think even Ran Carthon was in the booth for News 2 yesterday in the preseason game. And I was actually shocked about this because he talks a lot with Jeffrey Simmons, right? And like, him and Jeff will just sit down and talk. And I guess Jeffrey Simmons was mentioning he had seen a lot of improvement on the right side. For Jeffrey Simmons to say that, a guy that's seeing this offense, this front every single day, is pretty impressive. And I'm not going to say they're going to be world beaters by any means, but those are positive things coming from your veteran leaders on the team from the opposite side of the ball. That's very encouraging. I just see the hustle on every play, too. Guys, I can't remember the play it was, but it was Dylan Radins and Peter Skoronski. They were, like, down in secondary, like part of the field, still, like, blocking. Yeah. I mean, these guys are just relentless in terms of the effort. And I think that's what you have to do if you're going to play for a Bill Callahan line. Like, he's not going to accept anything less than that. So it is encouraging just from what we've seen or not seen in the past couple of years.
Yeah, I honestly don't think they could have been any better in New Orleans. I don't care that they're going up against backups. Previous Titans offensive lines did not look like starters against backups.
Yeah.
They looked like ones playing against backups. And to me, and again, my untrained eye, that is my headline for the Titans offensive line. They looked like starters. The Saints looked like backups. That is a step in the right direction for this group. And I thought specifically, the way that these guys are pulling, that's the first thing I noticed, because I remember Ramon saying that last season, that they're not trying anything different. They're just getting beat over and over. They weren't trying to pull two guards all the way around. They weren't trying to take the aggressiveness of the defense and then, bam, pop a guy in the side of the head because he gets too far upfield and punish him for that a little bit. Like, it does feel like this offense is very comfortable playing Brian and Bill Callahan's style of football, and specifically offensive line. I don't see anybody thinking too much. I see them making plays and being aggressive, being violent. I loved what I saw from the Titans offensive line yesterday.
It was good.
It was exactly what I needed to see to feel better about them.
And the tight ends played their part yesterday, too. I thought, even with the screen games and in the run game, like the way Coach Brian Callahan window dressed a little bit yesterday, we had two tight ends and he motioned them both in. If you guys noticed later in the game, he did the exact same thing except with the tight end and Jaquan Jackson, too. Like, so the ability to run the same plays and different variations and window and undress defenses the way they did yesterday, I thought was super unique. Something that's necessary in this game, too. And Will, to your point, and just what the offense is capable of doing. They went empty and motioned Tajay Spears back into the backfield. That's something we've spoken about for a lot of different times as far as different variations on how to get yards for this offense, but it's easy to do when you're balanced left and right. Right? And I know MPF is probably all of them are going to have some struggles along the way.
Sure.
But you have a better product of where they've been this year than I think you have last year. And you talk to any one of those guys and they bring up the idea, they understand that it is a luxury being coached by a guy like Bill Callahan. They do. And as I said earlier, like before I interviewed Peter, I was just asking him little stuff because I would just honestly want to engage him a little bit to see how he felt about the coach. And I brought up Bill Callahan and how he correlated the Munch. He was like, yeah, we got us a good dude. We understand. And he said the same thing. And you guys saw when we were out at practice, they do the exact same warm-up every single day. They hit the big Bertha and Olga. They hit the long sled every single day. And that's to train a system of just understanding that if it all goes bad, going back to the basics and doing simple technique is going to save me every single time. And what's unique about it is they're not doing anything overly crazy in practice. It is simply the basics. But when you got an offensive line that you can build a good foundation with and employ them to say, look, this is how we move, this is how we step, this is how we punch. And from that point, you just allow them to be themselves. He's not going to teach NPF to play like J.C. Latham. He's not going to teach Peter Skoronski to play like Dylan Radins. Like, it's a super unique group. And again, this all comes with growth. And at some point, Coach Bill Callahan will let go a little bit and let those guys become better naturally. But having them right now be on the same page, again, the way they are hip to hip on their blocks, they're finishing, they're looking for work. And I don't think we understand, like, being on the road with that crowd, and I don't care who the rushers were, but to have a pocket to what we've seen, those guys stand up vertically, the quarterbacks, and just deliver long passes down the field. That, to me, showed the progress that this group has made, and also with the quarterbacks, too.
Brian Callahan spoke about it yesterday. This was the head coach evaluating the specific plan and the intention behind the starting offensive line playing the entire first half.
That was by design. We wanted to play our skill guys for 2 series for sure. We got 2 long drives and pulled most of them out. The intent for the offensive line was to play a considerable amount more. We wanted those guys to play. We have a young line. They need reps together. We didn't get any reps against Seattle because we were trying to make sure there was a lot of reps for those guys during the week. So it was good to see them play a good extended amount of time. It'll be good film to watch, and they just need to play together. So we wanted to make sure they could do that. I think that's the guys that finished that first half at this point are probably our starting 5 for week 1. So again, there's things to be talked about still, but at this point, yeah.
How much more confident, or are you more confident at all, in this offensive line today from when training camp began?
It started with their right side.
Well, we didn't even know really what the right side was.
Yeah, I'm more confident. I don't want to give a number on it but
I'm not asking for a number. Just, are you more confident today than you were when camp started?
Yes.
I think everybody's got to be.
Absolutely. Yes. I think you are. I mean, it's not guaranteed that they're, like I said, going to go out there and be perfect in every game. But I thought it was telling, too, yesterday when J.C. Latham was on the sideline with Corey Curtis during that fourth quarter. And he asked, Corey Curtis did, about Bill Callahan. I could not believe he said this. He said, there is actually a possibility, while it probably could never happen, to play a perfect game under Bill Callahan because that's how good of a coach he is. I was like, whoa, that is high praise right there for a guy to come out and say you could get close to playing a perfect game because of how Bill Callahan coaches. I was like, that's a bold statement. I liked it, though.
Yeah.
Now, behind the starters, then things get a little more interesting, a little bit more chaotic.
Yeah.
Jalen Duncan, Cole Spencer, Dan Brunskill, Andrew Rupsich, and John Ojukwu was the Titans' backup offensive line. The third group had Jaron Christian at left tackle, Corey Levin coming in at center with those guys. Ramon, who is this team's third tackle, in your opinion, today? Or is the team's third tackle on the roster?
Was wild is I think we got our first 7 in that first series with Brunskill and John Ojukwu, but I don't know if John Ojukwu is the third tackle.
Right, is he? You're right. That's the question. Is he just your jumbo package, like big tackle for goal line settings? Does that also make him the swing tackle?
If he's going to be playing that role, yes, on game day.
Probably.
Simple answer. Yes.
Because I don't think you're going to have 4 tackles up of 4 guys that are just tackles. Because again, in a pinch, you could move Radins outside mid-game if you absolutely had to. But I think this team also doesn't want to do that.
And I think you can get 8 on game day. If I'm not mistaken, too, that new rule says you can get 8 guys on game day. But the dudes that are getting in the game early was Brunskill in the fullback role and John Ojukwu.
Yeah, so your extra 3 then in that scenario would be Ojukwu, Brunskill, and Rupsich probably.
Yeah, or Duncan. Maybe Duncan. And I'm not sure about that one. So
Titans run on Duncan.
I don't know.
Jalen Duncan.
Jalen Duncan, that is. I don't know, Will, to be completely honest. There hadn't been enough separation of the third tackle for me to say, well, I don't know if it's Juku or one of the Jerron Christian, Jalen Duncan, or a Juku. But right now, it sits at the top 7 is, as I said a second ago, Brunskill and the Juku. Yeah. So that means the Juku is your third tackle at this point.
And I don't really feel great about that, to tell you the honest truth. And I think you have to listen to what Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon said it on the broadcast yesterday in the booth. They've obviously been looking at other teams the past couple of days, been locked in rooms, just kind of watching other, guys that are out there that could be cut. I do feel like that is a position they could go grab someone from. Clearly, Bill Callahan's a part of that conversation as well, because, he's had these guys inside that building for a few months now, and it's always easier to kind of work with those people, But if there's a better talent out there, I would think that they would bring him in.
Well, there is a guy available with starting tackle experience. Think Dennis Daly still has his locker?
Geez Louise.
I'm going to say this. No, I'm serious. I'm going to say this completely seriously. This is not a joke. There are far worse options. I am not advocating for bringing back Dennis Daly. Do not hear me say that. However, that is the caliber of player you're going to get if you want to bring in another tackle from another team. Just honestly, that's what you did the first time. The Titans swapped picks and brought in Dennis Daly at the end of camp for a guy that was about to be cut by Carolina. So they made a pick swap for him to bring him in. So I do think that is a good measuring stick for all right, if that's your swing tackle level, then that's probably the caliber of player you're going to go get is Calvin Throckmorton, Dennis Daly, that surplus offensive lineman level. That's, I don't know. I think they are still enamored with Jalen Duncan's potential enough to do what it takes to keep him on the roster as the swing tackle. I think if Jalen Duncan was giving you this performance in year 3, he'd be done. You'd give up and cut bait. But I think they internally like him enough and his ceiling to stay with him.
Well, yeah, because look at the guy. He has all the physical attributes. So did
it's early
guys
enough
like
in his career.
Andre Dillard, excuse me. I mean, he had all the physical traits, right? But at what point, and he's been under Bill Callahan now for a few months. Now, granted, he was still hurt, I think, at the beginning of the offseason. But
Correct.
I just haven't seen enough from him, even under Bill Callahan, to be like, oh, yeah, I've seen some growth in him. I really haven't seen much of a difference in Jalen Duncan. At what point is the project not a project anymore and you're just, turning it in unfinished?
Well, he's still only in year 2. And even though you didn't see a lot of growth,
I get that.
Even though you didn't see a lot of growth, he didn't get worse the way Ajuku did over camp as well.
Well, and I'm not fighting.
That's
for
the thing.
Ajuku
Or his
either.
role didn't get minimized. I
Exactly.
felt like
Right.
Juku's
Ajuku.
role got minimized a little bit.
And again, I think the swing tackle is an important spot on this team. They don't have one.
It is.
Yeah.
By the way, too, real quick separation of last year and this year, I saw J.C. Latham get pushed back and lifted off one leg, but size and strength stopped it. That's one thing I think Dillard lacked. And the last 2 tackles that played that spot have lacked.
Interesting.
Watch the tape. He gets lifted, but his strength and size allowed him to anchor back down.
Those legs.
615-737-1045. We can catch up on phone calls coming up next.